Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm David Sarnoff, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships and an Executive Leadership Coach with Loeb Leadership. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of speaking with one of my college classmates, Lisa Montanaro, class of '90, Hofstra University. Lisa is an expert in productivity, and she's a consultant and founder and CEO of Lisa Montanaro Global Enterprises, LLC. Welcome, Lisa.
Hello, it's so nice to be with you, David. And as David mentioned, we went to Hofstra University together, and we've had an interesting parallel career experience without realizing it. Both went to law school, and then both now work in consulting and coaching with teams and organizations. So it's just really exciting to be back here. I'm from New York originally. I'm now in Northern California. And yeah, just really loving reconnecting with you, David, and looking forward to sharing information with everyone.
Likewise, and I really appreciate your time. So, Lisa, recently Loeb Leadership conducted a survey. It was targeted towards law firms across the country, but I think the results apply to just about any work environment. And as a result of our survey, what we found were three challenges that people are facing in the remote workforce. Is one, the general anxiety of being displaced from their work environment and living through this COVID-19 pandemic. They also have this feeling of isolation and loneliness, and they're also having difficulty communicating and engaging with their teams. So those were the top three, but not far behind was this feeling of not having productive and efficient workspace at home. And given your deep depth of experience and study in this area, how would you advise people in these circumstances to make the best use of their workspace at home?
I think there are two different types of people out there right now. The people that have already been working from home remotely, either temporarily or permanently, and then the people that this is a very new experience for. And so if you've already been dealing with this for a while, you probably have a good setup. But even if you had a good setup, it might not be a setup that you thought would be more permanent for months on end. So I think one of the first things to think about is designated workspace. And what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that they may have a home office, but they now have 5 people at home and they're trying to figure out where they're all going to work. So find a corner somewhere in your home that you can designate as your workspace. And I know it sounds really strange, but go there every day during your work hours. So try to keep that workspace just for work and keep your personal spaces just for personal. And I'm usually a big proponent, David, of life-work integration, and we could talk about that at another time. But right now, I think the best thing to do is to actually keep your workspace separate. It should be a workspace where you can fit your laptop or desktop, and it should have the most minimal disruptions in terms of outside noise and then ambient traffic coming on from household members and pets and things like that. So if you need to, you can also get some noise reducing headphones or earbuds, which would be a great thing to use right now because some of that outside distraction you can't actually help.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that would be the first thing in terms of workspace is come up with a designated workspace and then keep to some type of schedule. So if you used to work certain hours, try to keep to those hours. It's actually very normalizing right now to have a work schedule and to keep to it. So that would be my second tip about your workspace.
Sure.
And then the third one would be to try to have a communication, little conversation with your household members about boundaries. So I think boundaries are going to be really important right now in terms of how often you will be taking breaks. It's just so much better to set expectations and say, I'm going to have these work hours and I really can't be interrupted during them, but I promise I'll be having lunch with you or, an early evening walk with you. And then I think that also helps minimize the interruptions and distractions from household members.
Great. And are there any type of equipment or different types of organizers that might be helpful for people who aren't used to working from home?
Yeah, so let's talk really quickly about technology and systems. So what we're using right now is Zoom, for example. A lot of people have been getting to know Zoom. There is Skype, both personal Skype and Skype for Business, which has some really amazing features that rival Zoom, but just isn't, a lot of people are thinking of it as old school, which is interesting. And there's some great technology features in terms of communication with video conferencing, for example. But let's look a little more importantly, from my perspective, at productivity systems. So I'll give you an example. I use Asana, A-S-A-N-A. There's also Trello. Microsoft Planner comes with the 365 suite. So there's lots of different productivity systems. My advice is to pick one that will give you 75% or more effectiveness. Don't ever expect perfection because you're a human and you might not remember to put to-dos or tasks in there. You might forget to assign something. But if it works most of the time, then my biggest advice is to be consistent. People that are the most productive do small, ordinary things on a consistent basis, and that breeds extraordinary results. So pick a system that works well for you and your team, and then stick to it right now, and try not to keep looking like squirrel, keep looking for other productivity systems right now and thinking, let me try this new one. Find 2 or 3 great technology tools, let's say Zoom for recording, for video, and then Asana or Trello or something for productivity. And then my advice is to be consistent.
Great, great. And just globally, are there other words of advice that you, or just to suggest how people can make their day more productive under these circumstances and with the anxiety and with a lot of unknowns in their world right now?
Yes. There are 2 things that I've come up with over the years that I think would be really helpful. One is called creating meta decisions, META, and that's a global rule or policy that affects all of the smaller decisions that would come after it. And so meta decisions around productivity will look like, I won't check email before 8 in the morning, or I will set aside 4 hours a day to check email, and I will time those email sessions. So meta decisions are a great way to set up boundaries for yourself in terms of how you will interact with your own productivity, and they're really, really powerful. Another tool is a time map. I have examples that I use with my clients, and that is where you set sort of buckets of what you will work on, like let's say marketing Mondays and financial Fridays and admin Tuesday afternoons and staff meetings with your direct reports every Thursday. And again, it sounds very structured, but within that structure, it gives you freedom and flexibility outside of that structure to really play at other times. And so I would say that try to come up with some time maps or time journals or time rules, and then again, stick to those as much as you can. What I think is kind of neat, David, is that we're seeing 2 silver linings right now, which we wouldn't have expected, sort of unexpected benefits right now of what's going on. One is that we are able to view this time as an opportunity to measure remote work. And millions of businesses are going through this right now, and they're sort of rethinking, okay, maybe there are levels of employees that can work remotely and be extremely efficient that we wouldn't have considered in the past. And then also to up your game in terms of all of your remote tools. And then I think the second thing is this is a time to engage in work-life integration and to see your colleagues as humans, to see them holistically. You might have a cat walk by Zoom, someone's 3-year-old might come in, and I think it's an interesting time for people to show compassion for each other and to actually engage in that work-life integration in a way that they weren't able to in the past.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly support everything you just said. That was great advice. Thank
And
you
that's
so
a good
much.
segue into asking you some questions about
Sure.
how people are handling this. So, for example, how can managers and leaders effectively lead right now their people, their teams remotely?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate the question. And there are people who are doing it very well, and there are people who are struggling. And like I said before, that feeling of general anxiety and isolation, uh, those feelings of individual contributors give the leaders and the managers a great opportunity to engage these people. And and as a leader, you really model the behavior you expect of others, and your team is watching you. So, what I discuss with my clients is the ability to reach out and connect and show your support for people. Let them tell you how they feel. they want someone who is active listening, who is asking how they can support them, what resources do you need. It's also having regular communication, like your systems. Have one or two scheduled meetings a week where the team, or one-on-ones where the member of the team can give updates, discuss how they're feeling personally, and leaders can set expectations and kind of reevaluate where things are going. Members of the team want to hear the why of how decisions are being made. And what I'm hearing from a lot of clients is there's these unknowns where decisions are just coming down the pipeline and the workforce doesn't understand why they're being made. And that just creates more anxiety. So I think it's important for leaders to, like you said, be compassionate, raise their level of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, how they show up, how they're being perceived, because their emotions are also contagious to the team. So if the leader seems anxious and nervous, it's gonna spread to their team. But if they're calm, if they're thoughtful, if they're displaying empathy, connecting to experiences within themselves to understand the pain and challenges of members of their team, I think it's going to go a long way. That being said, leaders and managers are going to have to make some very difficult decisions in the coming weeks, and organizations have to decide whether or not they're going to initiate shared sacrifice, where we all sacrifice so we can stay together and hopefully come out stronger. Or there's other organizations who are making strategic decisions to just cut segments of their organizations. No matter which way the decision making goes, I think it really would benefit leaders to show compassion, just sincere feelings and authenticity when they're delivering this news, because the decisions and the actions that leaders and organizations make at this time under these circumstances are going to be remembered for a very long time. So I think, you know, if there is that shared mission culture, it may increase loyalty and dedication and help those companies emerge even stronger on the other side. If they're seen as abandoning their workers, I think it's going to be very difficult for them in the future to then try to build that culture back.
I think what you said earlier is so powerful about how the reaction is contagious. And so leaders have a tough time right now because there's this balance of showing vulnerability and compassion, but staying calm so that you don't also add to the frenzy of, you know, anxiety and isolation. So it's interesting. It's a balance, and it's not an easy one. And that's where things like emotional intelligence come in.
Absolutely. And leaders also need their confidants and people they trust
Right.
to download and be vulnerable with. But for their teams, they should be the support figure.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So Lisa, I thank you so much for spending this time with me. I truly hope we get to do it more in the future. If somebody wants to reach out to you and follow up and maybe ask you more questions, how can they reach you?
So the best way is to go to my website. It is lisamontanaro.com. You can send me an email through there. You can also find me all over social media. I know David's on LinkedIn with me, and we both enjoy being on that platform. But yes, feel free to reach out by email, lisa@lisamontanaro.com. Come over to the website and say hi.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I wish you all the best. Stay safe, be well, stay home.
You too. You too. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care.